Okay. This is the regular board meeting for July 9th, 2024. And Charlie, if you do roll call.
Chairperson Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Conger.
Here.
Board Member Straubing. Here. Board Member Cadwalder.
Here.
And Board Member Crawford is absent. He did let me know.
I would entertain a motion to excuse the absence of Daniel Crawford.
So moved. Supported.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Any changes or anything?
Nope.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Supported.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the June 11th, 2024 regular board meeting.
I'd like to motion to approve the minutes.
And I'd like to support that.
Okay? It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
Just want to note that I finished before 7 o'clock.
Let's beat that today.
I don't think we're gonna do it. We can do it.
I felt naked like last
All
week
those,
walking up
all
here.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And I abstain. Just because I wasn't here, so I would have no idea if the minutes were correct or not. Safety moment.
All right, we're gonna hand over the safety moment to Megan to take it away this month.
That's me.
Yay.
Grilling safety. I don't know if you are the griller in your family. I am not. But just some, important tips to remember. Seems pretty self-explanatory, but never leave your grill alone. Grill outside, obviously. My favorite one is keep your grill clean and remove grease buildup. My what?
That ruins the taste for the next time.
Well, I'm gonna say my dog hates when we clean our grill because then she can't lick the grease off of it. So that's her favorite part.
Monster.
But yeah, just some easy things to remember as you hopefully are able to grill this summer.
Clear a 3-foot area around the grill. Yep, everybody's driven by the house. It's got very melted siding from the grill being slightly too close to vinyl siding.
So yeah. That's about
Well,
it.
that is very informative. Thank you.
Okay.
I like that.
Moving on, public comment. Any? Okay. Number 6, action items.
All right, first action item is the fiscal year 2024 write-off for fiscal year ending 2023, and Megan has supplied a memo, and I'll hand it over to her, but kind of self-explanatory, but if there's anything you want to highlight.
I mean, as you can see, we are doing very well. We had another good year. It's probably going to be our last good year, as I also say in the memo, unfortunately, but that one was out of our control. All the ones the debts that we have been able to control, I mean, the office, Hillary mainly does a great job of following up, and I know the other office staff help as well, but she really does a great job of staying on people and getting them to pay, so. Yeah, so I think the total 110.42 this year. So yeah.
210.46, right? Or 110?
No, 210.46 was last year.
Last year.
110.42 is right up here.
It's right here for 24. Okay.
Yeah, so it ended up being three accounts, so.
Was this because we went from 8,000 down to 210.46, according to my information, but I see what you mean right here.
Yep.
Is it because your process changed then since then?
Mhm.
Super cool.
Well, it's not that it's changed, it's that it's being more closely followed, I would say.
Okay. So somebody's on top of it diligently.
Yes,
That's the deal.
yes.
The right people and processes are in place.
How long do we have to clear that debt with write-in until they officially close and it goes back to the landlord, whoever owns the building?
There is protected by bankruptcy, so there's nothing we can do to collect it.
And I know that, but I mean, going forward, nothing.
When a corporation files bankruptcy, everything, any debt incurred up till the filing date is protected. Since their bankruptcy filing date, anything moving forward, they've had to stay current. If they don't stay current, they're eligible for shut off just like everybody else. So as they roll through their final bill, that's kind of their last opportunity to build on that bad debt if they slip it on the final bill. But I don't know what the process would be, but through the bankruptcy proceedings, the presiding judge establishes a pool of, it's basically a pool of deposits for all creditors, and there's potentially an opportunity to claim a piece of that, but tends to be half of 1 month of the average previous 12 months, which is wildly insufficient to cover an actual bill. So that amount for their bankruptcy is just over $1,000, I think.
Yep.
And that number will ultimately go to the write-off.
So the day that they close, do we go over there and pull the plug?
Not
Unless
if
somebody
they're
has
not-
claimed that account?
Not if they're current. If they're current, if there's no we will turn it off when they instruct us to turn it off, or when they're eligible for disconnect following our policies.
Okay.
So, because they could have a desire, just because the store's closed, if they're still paying the bills and they want to, because they may have obligations to keep the electric service on. I don't know if they own the building, don't own the building. There's a lot of other factors at play there.
Mhm.
But if they're not eligible for disconnect through our standard disconnect procedures, or they don't request that the service be turned off, then it'll stay on.
Okay.
I would like to turn it off, but it may go into, I don't think anybody's reached out to us. It may go into a landlord's name, it may go into a holding company's name, it may go into some sort of, some organization that administers the bankruptcy. I'm not sure. We haven't been given any information as to what the next phase will
I
look
think they
like.
start liquidation tomorrow, because I have here tomorrow, I can't get any more prescriptions there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the pharmacy's closing down, and then, I think Julie was saying, they've got a company that comes in and manages the liquidation,
Yeah.
and they will slowly just get rid of, they'll keep marking things down until all their stuff's gone, and then they'll be done.
Yep.
But they're looking at, I think, an actual final closing date. I think we're told somewhere in the middle of August. So they'll be puttering around a little bit.
So I will entertain a motion to, our write-offs for 2024 is $110.42.
A motion to approve it.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
I just want to note that thank you for, doing such a good job. And, you know what's coming down the road. We don't have, too many surprises. I mean, so, thank you.
I just wanted to note, I think, Megan said this would be the last good year, but that's more the trend of increasing goodness is going to stop, but it doesn't mean it won't be a good
So
year.
it's still a decent year,
I would
it's
say-
just not.
Well, even, I mean, if you look at comparatively where we stack up, even the next year, which would be a significant increase, will still be a great year.
Right, so what has become to us what feels like a bad year is still a great year. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Informational items.
All right, we're a little heavy on the informational items this month, so I'm gonna roll through a little bit and try to give everybody plenty of time to ask any questions, but first thing we're going to touch base on is the 2023 Actuarial Evaluation. So just a little bit of background. Each year, MERS, by the end of June, has to supply us with an actuarial evaluation, or an actuarial valuation of all of our accrued liabilities and all of our accrued assets associated with all of our different MERS plans, our pension plan, our hybrid plan. and it looks at the previous calendar year. So they look at everything, we get a little bit of a mismatch on our fiscal year to their calendar year. Some things that you will notice here, I pulled together just some things to pull from the actual report, but the full report is in your board packet. But overall funding did dip a little bit, even though and that's a combined city and light and power. When you look down at the individual divisions from light and power related divisions, the 01 division is our standard pension plan. We saw a little bit of a dip there. The hybrid division, we saw a dip there. And I just want to highlight this, that it's not that a lack of making contributions. We continue to make all of the required contributions that they say we need to, and then any additional contributions we have been making to the surplus. So each individual fund, what this tells me from seeing a slide is that they are deviating from their actuarial assumptions, and I don't want to get on my soapbox here. Megan will appreciate that. They've implemented some policies that I think in my opinion, make it very difficult to sustain positive growth and based on their minimum calculations. We just don't carry forward enough of the good years to help smooth out the bad years. But with that being said, we've put all of our focus and extra contributions going to that surplus division, because the surplus division is what shortens the time that we have to pay it. If we make excess contributions straight into the 01 division, we can improve that funding percentage, but all it does is on an annual basis, they re-amortize our unfunded liability through 2041. So if we make excess contributions to the 01 division, all that does is lower our required payments in subsequent years, but it still assumes that we'll pay it off by 2041. So I wanted to just highlight that a little bit, because I know we've spent a lot of time talking about pension funding, and it looks like we're slipping a little bit, but the overall funding ratio actually went up. If you look at all of our liabilities and all of our assets, we saw a slight uptick. If you'll scroll down just a little bit, right at the last line, we saw a slight uptick in our overall funding ratio from 61.1% to 61.7%. Other thing I want to highlight here in the surplus contributions, if we think back to 2023, beginning of 2023, we stopped making surplus contributions. So for the first 6 months of 2023, there were no surplus contributions. Then we budgeted $120,000 in the fiscal year that just ended. So we plan to make $10,000 payments each month of fiscal year 2024, which we made those first 6 payments, but the only surplus contributions were those 6 payments. Since then, we've increased our, starting in January, we increased our surplus contribution from $10,000 to $15,000, and we made the $75,000 one-time contribution. So we've made up quite a bit of ground since the calendar rolled over to 2024, and those contributions are not reflected in this. So if you'll scroll down to the charts real quick, Megan, and zoom out just a touch. So I can send all these out to the board, but this is just a quick snapshot of where we've come. So the top line there is our total liabilities. You can see they continue to grow. And then the 2 lines below, or the sets of lines, are our total assets and our percent funded. And if you'll notice, each of those reflect with surplus and without surplus. And I just wanted to graphically show kind of what that surplus contribution is doing to our overall funding percentage, and it's really helping us out right now. It's carrying us from 50. I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but just those surplus. Actually, the surplus contributions are taking us from about 57.4% funded up to just under 62% funded. And then if you look at the additional contributions we've made this calendar year that are not reflected in this, there's an additional 2 to 3% of funding percentage that are tied up in that. So doesn't look great, but we are steadily improving, and we've set ourselves on a path to continue to make that progress. And we set ourselves on a path, hopefully, to have this thing fully funded, or what we'll call it fully funded, over the next 10 years or so, well ahead of the requirements to have it fully funded by 2041. And then if you'll scroll to the next graph, this was encouraging. I put this in the packet last year, but our 01 division is our standard pension division. It's been closed since 2012. But theoretically, our total liability shouldn't increase in a closed division, because as long as we don't deviate from actuarial assumptions. But one of the things I wanted to draw your attention to here was the fact that this is the first year since, on the graph, that our total pension liabilities didn't grow year over year. So hopefully MERS is continuing to adjust their actuarial assumptions to bring in line with reality instead of a more favorable outlook. So hopefully we can continue to see our liabilities stay flat, so we can at least know what that target is we're shooting at, where when you see $300,000, $400,000 a year in increases in liability, we're now shooting at a moving target as we try to fund our pension. So happy to answer any questions. That's a lot of quick information, but any questions on the pension funding or the actuarial evaluation?
Nope.
Easy enough. All right, pension funding's exciting. Come on, people. All right, then we'll go ahead and roll on. Megan, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, just getting through
Get
this.
through it.
Yep.
Everybody's got to read all through the whole thing. So, wanted to do just a quick refresher, quick discussion on renewable energy credits. What is a renewable energy credit? This is not meant to be an exhaustive review, but just kind of setting the foundation for some of the conversations we'll continue to have over or surrounding the renewable energy compliance requirements that are getting thrown out or were approved by Michigan legislatures last year. So we'll just jump right in. Shouldn't take long, but you want to make sure everybody's understanding of what exactly a renewable energy credit is, or a renewable energy certificate. It's called different things, but essentially a renewable energy credit, or a REC, it's the environmental attributes associated with energy that's produced from a renewable source. So what this bottom picture kind of represents, just quickly, is all sorts of resources are dumping electrons into the grid that are being used. The chaotic nature of the transmission grid makes it impossible to track what electrons you're actually using. We have no clue if the light's powering or the electricity powering the lights in here, what resource it comes from, what combination of resources it comes from. You can't track. You can't say, hey, this megawatt hour, one REC is equal to 1 megawatt hour, 1,000 kilowatt hours. So you can't say, hey, we used this solar field, created a 1 megawatt of power. We want that actual energy to go here. It's all dumped into the grid. Everybody pulls off of the grid, but you've got to have a way to track that environmental attribute. And it's kind of an intangible type of product. Casey and I joke about it a lot. It reminds us of creative accounting. We're trading and selling things that don't exist, but they do. But really, when a renewable energy resource, wind, solar, when it generates 1 megawatt of energy, it immediately decouples the energy side of things, and the 1 megawatt of energy goes into the grid, and whoever uses it. And it also creates this renewable energy certificate, or this REC, and it decouples them at the time of generation. So you have one product is the actual energy, and one product is is the value of the fact that it was produced from a renewable resource. And that's this renewable energy credit. So, when you get to the end consumer, both consumers are pulling off of the grid, and they're both pulling from the same grid that has traditional resources and renewable resources, but with the home without the REC doesn't get to claim any of that renewable, the renewable attributes. You have to have that REC, and that renewable energy certificate or credit is ultimately an auditable trail that says the 1 megawatt of power I just used was generated from a renewable resource. So if you'll go to the next slide. When it comes down to why are RECs important, it really, our resources are putting putting energy onto the grid, but we truly retain an asset. That renewable energy credit is an asset. And then we have the ability to sell them. We have the ability to retire them. But retiring RECs is ultimately your vehicle, anybody's vehicle to claiming that their power came from a renewable resource. Without the retirement of the REC, unless you own that retirement of the REC, or you have actively retired a REC, you cannot make any claims on the power. So we could theoretically have 100% of our power generated from renewable resources. If we don't retire any RECs, we cannot claim even 1% renewable. That is the auditable trail that allows you to claim, because if we don't retire it, somebody else could. So you could have entity A that generates 100% of their power from renewable resource, and entity B that generates 100% of their power from coal supply. And the coal supply entity B could purchase enough RECs from company A to claim that they're 100% renewable, and company A can't. It's kind of weird, but in the big mess of things, it does make sense. But good example is right now we receive about 26% of our energy needs through renewable resources. We can only legally claim that we are 15% renewable. And if you go to the MPSC website and you look up what our renewable percentage is, it's 15%. And that's because we only retire enough RECs on an annual basis to meet the 15% threshold that was the old legal requirement. But RECs are important because it truly is an auditable trail. If we go onto the MyRECs website and we say, hey, we're going to retire this one REC, this 1 megawatt hour, we can take that from retirement and backtrace it all the way to the generation source, and we can know that one megawatt hour that was put on the grid from whatever resource it was can truly only be claimed as renewable by one company. So if you will, next slide. So how do we get our RECs? Through purchase power agreements, basically. Right now, we have multiple solar projects. We have Pegasus wind project in our portfolio, but for us, and why I put this in here, is our landfill gas contracts also produce renewable energy certificates. And those contracts are, while they're very expensive power, the highest fixed power that we have in our fixed price power we have in our generation mix or our portfolio, but they do produce RECs, which provide a lot of value. Other thing, once we do receive these RECs, they have a 5-year shelf life. So a REC that we generate this calendar year from whatever can be retired, and we can claim the renewable attributes in the year that it's retired for up to 5 years. So if a REC is generated today, we can retire it in 2029. And then the other nice thing is there is a market for RECs. Because it's a product, even though it's not a physical product that you can put your hands on, there's a market for them. They can be sold, and for us, and what we'll get into is they can be purchased as well. So if you'll go to the next slide. Why are we talking about it? PA 235. Obviously last year, renewable, the legislature passed pretty aggressive renewable standards, 15%, 2024 through 2029. We're already in compliance with those. 2030 through 2034, we have to be 50% renewable, so we have to retire on an annual basis enough RECs to meet 50% of, there's different calculations, it tends to be like a 3-year rolling average, 3-year look back rolling average, and then by 2035, we've got to hit 60% renewable, and that lasts forever. Not really forever, but, and one of the things that is unique to us as municipals, as we engage with stakeholders throughout the process to the legislature passed PA 235, we were able to carve out a special exemption for municipals that enables municipals to use REC purchases for 100% of our renewable requirements through 2035. After 2035, there are caps. But for everybody else that the law applies to, I believe they are capped at 5% REC purchases. And I said you can go out on the market. Right now, the market for renewable energy credit in Michigan is pretty cheap, a couple dollars. There are other parts of the country, Maryland specifically, that I can think of off the top of my head, where RECs are worth $25, $30 a REC, which is 20, 30. That's half of our power price. Our base power price is about $60 a megawatt hour. In Maryland, $30 worth of $30 a megawatt hour for a REC is a pretty lofty price. But because we have the ability to purchase RECs for compliance purposes, we also have the ability to purchase them from anywhere in the RTO. So anywhere in MISO, so anywhere, any REC that is generated anywhere in the blue area, except for maybe Canada. I don't quite be honest, I don't quite understand how that all works crossing the international borders. All the MISO stuff we don't really talk about. We don't really talk about Canada, but as just to give an idea, like I said, REC in Michigan is worth a couple dollars. A REC in Maryland's worth 30. So throughout the MISO footprint, the price of a renewable energy credit is going to fluctuate significantly, and having the ability to leverage REC purchases for legal compliance reasons allows us quite a bit more flexibility in how we choose to comply with the new requirements. We don't want to get too gung-ho on just using purchases because there is a cliff. We do have to have assets in play, but this gives us quite a bit more time to figure out where those firm assets are going to come and where those firm RECs are going to come, continuing to move forward. But we're also talking about it now because Light and Power, we are actively working with MPPA to develop our clean energy plan. Our clean energy plan is essentially what the board will all be asked to approve. I don't remember the timeline off the top of my head, but we'll ask you all to approve that, and it will ultimately get submitted to the Michigan Public Service Commission, and that is our roadmap for compliance for clean energy requirements. So some of the questions that MPPA is asking of boards and of utilities really focuses on renewable energy credits. As you can imagine, different communities have very different priorities in where RECs are generated or how they're generated. Different communities, different stakeholders have different opinions on them. Some people find REC purchases as fairly disingenuous. There are corporate companies that want to see new to the grid offsets, and there's just different motivations in from whether it's corporations, communities, but a lot of the questions that we have are focused on, are there strong opinions from a compliance standpoint on where we generate RECs, and again, or where we obtain RECs to ultimately retire for compliance purposes. Not asking any of the questions today. Again, this is just meant to be kind of a weird abstract concept. So
Yeah, I'm confused.
Ask questions, because This is something Casey and I talk about
We
regularly.
can sell RECs, but that does not contribute to our retirement of RECs.
The only reason we would tend to sell Rex is if the shelf life is about to retire, because you have a 5-year shelf life. So if you get to the end of the shelf life, you either have a choice to sell it off and let somebody else claim it, or you can go ahead and retire it and claim that additional savings. So we tend to not sell much of it.
If we sell it, then, what's my question? Well, they have the right to that REC
For their purposes, we can, yeah. It's not a tool for us anymore, now it's a tool for them.
Yep. Yeah, and, so, okay.
Where sales become more relevant is, Case, I remember exactly, one of the landfill gas projects, landfill gas or solar, I don't remember what it is. Landfill gas is in PJM. One of the landfill gas projects is in PJM's RTO, and PJM has rules where you can register an asset in different states. So there's a landfill gas project, I believe in Ohio or maybe southern,
Water Fleet?
I'm not sure. I don't know the details. But there's a project that generates RECs that's in PJM. It's registered in Maryland, which is why I know about the Maryland. So we sell the RECs that it generates in Maryland at $30 a REC and purchase Michigan renewable energy credits at a significantly reduced price as an offset. It's an arbitrage deal. So that's where some of your sales in the market come into play. We're not in the business of generating RECs to sell them.
Okay.
But there are some arbitrage opportunities because you do have the ability to sell, market, you can leverage them financially.
And it's MISO that issues the RECs, or which organization?
No.
Who's the governing body of that?
I'm not sure. I'll be honest, it's a federal standard. So there's a lot of people involved. The SEC is involved,
Yeah.
but that's more from like a claim standpoint. Company ABC claims to be 100% renewable.
They verify that.
They have to be involved. So it's just kind of, I'm not sure where the standard is, but each state administers them a little different. Like Michigan has the MyRecs. So in Michigan, like if theoretically we purchase RECs from Texas, because they're cheap maybe, I have no clue if they're cheap or not. It's generated in Texas, and this is some of the questions that are still unanswered, is we have to be able to transfer that Texas renewable energy credit into the MyRecs or the Michigan RECs program so that it can be retired for Michigan purposes. So there's still a disconnect between the law that was passed and how it's going to be executed.
So who's the expert in this whole grand scheme of things? Of how this is a huge, lots of moving parts.
Well,
So who's the
MPPA is
expert?
really truly
So the
our,
MPPA is the one that's gonna oversee,
for us.
so that if somebody gets stupid and buys some cheap energy from Texas, and then we find out that we get caught with our pants down and it doesn't come out correctly,
Yeah.
who's monitoring that we're not?
Go talk to
going
Dr. Sloop, right?
Yeah, it's
Who's
MPPA.
monitoring?
Yeah, MPPA is our vehicle to compliance as far as what we work with. Every year we have phone calls with MPPA to say, hey, what are we doing? And MPPA doesn't, they're the experts, but they don't have the authority to execute transactions without our approval.
Think of one like a broker,
Yeah,
like a rec broker.
yeah, they're out there looking for the arbitrage deals, understanding the markets, the various markets throughout the country, and ultimately helping us develop this clean energy plan, which is ultimately going to be our roadmap to compliance with the law.
What does the MPA actually have in their grasp? I know it's not a physical thing, but what is the value or how many RECs do they hold?
So I don't know how much MPPA holds.
Okay. You know,
Because they're allocated to each member. It's
Right.
really better, what does MPPA hold on our behalf?
Right, yes.
And it's, I mean, we generate our total, I'm gonna use some very round numbers, but our total energy demand on the last 3-year rolling average is right around 80,000 megawatt hours a year. We get about, it's solar,
Renewable,
wind,
renewable.
and, yeah, solar, wind, and, well, that's our entire system need,
Right.
about 80,000 megawatt hours. We get about 25% of our energy from renewable resources, so on average, on an annual basis, we generate about 20,000 renewable energy credits. But we only, for the next, the problem is you pull on one side, you pull, you know, things happen 3 different directions, so every year, we have to worry about 5-year-old RECs falling off and their shelf life expiring. We generate new RECs, we also retire RECs. So there's a lot of, there's kind of 3 sets of strings that are getting pulled in each direction.
Do we have to worry about as politicians come in that they look at changing how that works? Because I've been following a lot of this lately. A lot of them want natural gas and or nuclear power, and they want to go away from solar and wind turbine because of what their constituents are saying. So what does that look like for you guys? When and if that should happen? Might affect how I vote this November.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a political, I mean, our compliance requirement is tied in politics. So anytime there is a power shift, there tends to be a desire to undo what the opposite side has done. So we don't know. It really depends. It depends on a lot. I would never claim to have a good, I've never claimed to have my arms wrapped around the situation well enough to make a prognostication or
Prognostication.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Yes, I got no crystal ball, and I'm not gonna claim to, so.
Yeah.
Go
I was
ahead,
gonna say,
Jason.
like, this is essentially the market that the government created to be able to control renewable energy and how they want to mandate the construction of renewable energy resources. And they basically created this market so that you have to comply with it, and they can kind of throttle up, throttle back, how quickly you're required to either purchase these RECs, which means somebody else is building the asset, or you need to build the renewable asset yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's a very abstract topic. I mean, you know, most people are used to saying, hey, I sell paper plates. So you want to buy this paper plate, I'll hand you a paper plate, you'll hand me 5 cents, and we're good. This is, you know, very much something that's tied up in an attribute, not the actual product. The attribute of how it's generated. And there's value because of social pressures, desire, you know, individual desires, legal requirements. It creates this market that ultimately attributes a value to the fact that a megawatt hour of energy was generated from a wind turbine.
That's the consumers, right, that drive demand. And so it's basically taking the means for consumers to reward generators of renewable energy.
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it. It's a reward. It really is a reward. It's a monetary, it's a monetization of that, the physical properties of how it was, because there is a market for it, because the consumers, the politicians, everybody have created this market to ultimately incentivize and meet the consumer demand.
So, I think there's one municipality, didn't they like go 100% green? And is this the path they took to do that? Or a large percentage green?
So this is the only path to claim any level of renewable attributes.
Because
of your
they're not
power supply.
producing it themselves.
Yeah, well, even if you produce them, if you put at your house, bad example, I'm not sure it actually goes all the way to the residential level. But theoretically, your house, you put solar panels up and you've got a structure where you retain those RECs. You can't claim that even if that energy never goes back in the grid and you know it's consumed at your house, because there's a bidirectional meter.
Right.
Theoretically, your retirement of the RECs is ultimately what gets you to be able to kind of claim that, to make the legal claim. Again, I think that's probably too granular, but scale it up to Lowell Light and Power.
Yeah.
If Lowell Light and Power had enough generation, if we had enough solar behind our transmission line meter that we were never taking power off of the grid, and we knew we were truly generating 100% of our needs, we still have to retire the REC to be able to claim that we're renewable. It's the only way you can make a claim.
Okay, let's move on.
Megan, I think that was it.
Yep, it was.
Let's see the kid. That was a fun picture.
It showed up for just a second.
Yep.
Oh, it's fine.
How I feel.
Oh, little man.
He made an appearance in the office.
Screensaver.
This week? No, it's
We have to pay royalties now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're not for profit.
There you go.
All right, so we'll roll right on to performance data. This is the last one of the fiscal year. I think I'm getting there. I thought it was pretty interesting as you look at sales. You can really notice the expansion at one of our industrial customers. We finished the year pretty significantly ahead of the previous 4 years in overall sales. If you look at industrial sales, the trend follows. You really see that delta grow between the orange line and the other lines, kind of in that January timeframe. We were already trending a little bit ahead, but you see that delta really start to grow quickly with the expansion at King Milling to come online. So commercial sales were up. A lot of this is tied into the grow operation. They buy a lot of kilowatt hours and technically qualify for a commercial rate. But if you roll down to residential, it ended up finishing slightly ahead of last year, but as you can see, we're very much in the middle of the pack if you look at a 5-year window. So kind of weird, but
It just baffles me how that is happening.
Yes.
I mean, is it really obvious, like, all the electric meters, how they get read? Do we know when one doesn't get read?
yes, we
Is
have.
it very obvious to us that we have to manually read it and?
Yeah, there's reports, we get a daily report of any meter that goes backwards, any meter that registers usage that doesn't go into billing. It's captured everywhere, and we have, I don't want to say we've been exhaustive in our investigation, but I don't think exhaustive is a bad description of the amount of time that
Okay.
Megan and I have really dug into it. We've brought Ryan, and we've really,
It's constant.
yeah. The metering we're gonna talk about the metering system a little bit later, which isn't gonna give you a ton of confidence, but from a billing perspective, we have things in place that we're very confident that we're not missing kilowatt hours being billed. That would show up in our losses. As we track our losses, we'd see steady increases in losses, because ultimately those kilowatt hours were being billed for. So we know what we pull off of the transmission grid, and we know what we sell, and we know that there should be about a 4.5% difference. We should 4 to 4.5, love to get under 4, but we know that we're going to purchase off of the grid 4.5% more kilowatt hours than we sell. And that's just line losses, core losses, just part of just operating electric grid. So we monitor things like that. What do our losses look like over time? We've looked at average sales over periods of times to see if the averages are changing. And we've really I think we've been pretty exhaustive, and I think it's just a matter of new homes are very efficient.
Yeah, new
And we're-
air conditioners are very, so when they get replaced, yeah, they're like 10 times more efficient than, you know.
And one of the piece of evidence that indicates that we're not seeing that is we're collecting customer charges. We're watching customer charge revenue increase, which means there's more customers. That's a fixed cost. Yes, you can see the incremental jumps in January when that customer charge changes, but there's additional checks that would catch zero usage bills, because we know the bills are being generated because there's a customer charge as part of that bill. But there's just, it comes down to they're being billed and they're just not zero usage, so it's just it's mostly weather driven,
Yeah.
I think, and new homes and
Right.
efficiencies.
Just a kind of off the wall question here. When the city switched over to LED streetlights, how significant of a change in usage was that? Is it noticeable in your numbers, or was it just kind of a little bit of a dip or something?
We don't have a ton of streetlights, but I can tell you that I've been involved in other very large wholesale streetlight projects, and they're on a large scale. There's a significant enough savings for most people that companies will come in and performance bond stuff. And community I was at previously, we worked with the city to do a wholesale change out, and the savings that they received by converting to LEDs actually paid a debt payment on a piece of equipment that they needed. So a company came in and gave them, it was kind of a package deal. You need product X, it's huge, it's a massive cost. We'll bond it, we'll perform, or we'll debt finance it, and you'll pay the debt by the energy savings, and we'll actually bond the performance at that point. So, I mean, it's a pretty substantial, from our standpoint, I don't think we have enough lights for it to make like a material financial impact, but you two were
I think the biggest savings was the frequency of trips out to do maintenance.
Oh.
Several years ago, there was several lights a week, if not a couple a day, that we would roll out to fix. There isn't one per week usually lately, and one per month maybe gets called in. So that savings of the frequent trips out there to do maintenance on them, I think is major in terms of savings, I would say.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah. But yeah, the savings is substantial. From a financial impact, I would say it's negligible to us. I'll be honest, I wasn't. I didn't watch the transition happen, so.
Okay.
All right. Roll on. The next graph, this is a graph that we said we would share once a year at the end of the year. Thank you for remembering me. And it just shows kind of trends over time. Obviously, you can see total sales. This year we saw a noticeable increase. So, but that total residential sales, even with growth, you see some growth in sales, and then it just kind of flattens out. And we're really not sitting in a much different place than we were 10 years ago in total kilowatt hour sales at the residential level, but we're sitting with a whole lot more customers. We'll roll on to the next one. Cost per kilowatt hour saw some pretty good downward pressure this past month, largely driven by PCA being low, and also just the volumetric sales. There's more kilowatt hours to spread your fixed charges over, so it helps bring down some of those costs. But it's also very much, it's on par with July of last year, but hopefully we can continue to see some of that downward pressure from the PCA. The next graph is another iteration of cash and investments, and this is where we're going to land, I think. This is ultimately the graph that I think provides Megan and I with the most value. It's a mix of internally unrestricted and internally restricted funds, but the solid colors are they are the internally unrestricted, and then your diagonal lines are your internally restricted. So we will continue to report this moving forward. I guess it'll be a couple months at the end of the audit will change the 120-day target. So it'll still be a little bit before we change that solid black line and then the 140 days of cash dotted line. But all indications are that by the time the audit comes around, we are going to have cash balances far in excess of the 120 days per policy. And we're in a really good position even after we have the very large truck purchases coming up in a couple years, and we're in a position to deplete the equipment replacement fund and still maintain that 120 days of cash. I like this graph. I appreciate making it through this one out there, and I thought it really captured everything that we were trying to capture.
Nice.
Next one, aging analysis. We'll roll on. I think that's kind of about it. The only last thing I want to touch base on information is it keeps scrolling if you want. This one I always like to highlight, still steady trends upward. And Monday we actually had Invoice Cloud, the vendor that does our paperless billing and auto pay and online portal payment stuff. They sent a camera crew in to do a video with our staff because we've had such success with paperless billing and auto pay that they wanted to use us kind of as a case study. And so we had a camera crew in on Monday, and then they ended up going down, I guess it was yesterday, it's weird. They ended up, Sweet Seasons is on paperless billing and auto pay, and they're going to be highlighted in the video from a customer perspective. So
They didn't call my house.
I was asked if there's anybody that might be interested. Your name was the first name that came up. We should make Perry do it. But I think it was in jest. But no, it was very, very interesting to see. And I think more than anything, it highlights the great work that's being done by everybody in the office to promote that. And we're really a shining star in their eyes as far as case study for success. We roll on to the PCA and PCA revenue. The PCA is as low as it has been since we updated our formula. Seen some invoices last month, this month. There's going to be upward pressure on it, but to be expected going into the summer. We incur a lot of our expenses in the summer. Our transmission expenses go up in the summer. General power prices go up in the summer. So it's good to see that we're going to be starting from a good point so that we can absorb some of that upward pressure without getting back into that range of late 22, early 23 time frame where we saw PCA creep up close to $1.50 1.5. And that is performance data. With that, I'll hand it over to Ryan for outage report.
Fairly busy month
Yeah.
this past month.
Yeah.
Fifth one down, the first one of the month was, still is an area out there on Pratt Lake that we need to take some action on. I'm talking through the removal of some large pine trees with the customer. They're fairly attached to them trees. I think we got them convinced to let us get rid of them, and we'll take some action on that one so we won't have that problem again. Another one out on Pratt Lake was a squirrel, last one on the list there. And then we did have a couple other ones that were just smaller ones on Alden Nash. There was a small branch that grew out, made contact, did cause an outage because of that. We have identified that as a large area that needs a bunch of tree trimming, and it's just amazing to me that how fast we need to go back to areas to trim them again. It seems like we were just there just 2 or 3 years ago. The gentleman that owns the place pretty much confirmed the same thing I just said. He said, "You guys were just here just a couple of years ago, it seems like, and they are just crazy tall, need to be completely removed in that area to keep us from having repeat outages." Good news, I think, for our system is on the 25th, when we had that large storm go through, we only really had 34 customers out of service for that entire storm when it blew through. 3 different outages, 3 different locations. One of them, the second one from the bottom of the list, is out on Casey Rose. 7 customers were affected. If it wasn't for the recent fusing, reassortment, and organizing and coordination, there would have been 30+ customers out of service with that one. So all that work definitely has paid off a couple of different times now with reducing the number of people that are out of service when we do have outages. So I chalk that up as a huge win. We did have an unfortunate incident where we had some communication breakdown with our call service, and our email notifications from outages that come into our AMI system did not help us out either. On the 15th of June, we had one customer that was out of service because of a failed transformer, and it was unfortunate that they were out almost a full day, like a 24-hour
I
period.
just did the math, 16.11 hours, yeah.
Yes, and I would definitely like to note that if it wasn't for the watchful eye of one of our office ladies that was watching through social media, we still wouldn't have known about it until several hours later, most likely, and she caught the comment on a social media platform and then notified us right away. We rolled out there to see what was going on. It was a failed transformer. Kind of a crazy situation because this transformer was just replaced several months back because it was identified as a transformer that was not correctly sized. So we put a larger one in there, and this larger one failed. Just a strange coincidence, but also in that same area when the technician was out, one of our on-call guys was out in the area trying to re-energize this transformer. As the fuses were blowing at this transformer as he was identifying what was wrong, it did cause a main line fuse to blow, which did knock a few other customers off momentarily along Quarry Lane. Kind of coincidental, but those were restored fairly quickly as we went and picked up a new transformer and changed it out. And also, 6/15 of 2024 was Father's Day. It was fairly warm, and 0 of any of our other staff members were available to come help because they had family events going on. Our on-call guy was like on top of it. He called for help right away. We couldn't find any other folks to go help him from our staff, so I ended up helping him out, and we took care of things without any problems. But just you know, it's Father's Day, and I can't blame anyone for having plans and not being available. So it's kind of good that they have lives and they're not just sitting around waiting to come and help us out. But the on-call guy, he stepped right up. He took care of business. It was pretty awesome. And crazy enough, the homeowner at Pratt Lake at 3409 loaned us a voltmeter because the voltmeter batteries were dead on the one we had on the truck. So he loaned us a voltmeter to test the transformer that we installed there to verify that it was still good before we did hook him back up. So thankful that we had one of them. We would have had to run all the way back to the warehouse and get another one. It would have took a lot longer. And anyway, busy month.
So, yeah, and that one, I want to pause just a little bit to talk about some of our follow-up actions, I guess. First, obviously, I think it goes without saying that customers sitting out for 16 hours is unacceptable. And we did have, like Ryan said, we had systems and backup systems in place, but we are in the process of setting up meetings and doing pretty exhaustive reviews with the call service to understand where the breakdown was on their end. I'm going to do kind of a root cause analysis with them, understand what happened, understand what they're doing to rectify the situation. We're also working with the manufacturer of the AMI to understand what gaps there are from a technology standpoint that resulted in failure to communicate. Because we tend to, you all have been here when an outages come in, the emails go out and people go to work. That failed there, so we had kind of the confluence of 2 system failures. So once we kind of finish addressing those 2 issues, we're also, I guess, simultaneously evaluating our response procedures and do we add a 3rd fail-safe in there? What more can we do? Because it's just unacceptable to have a customer sit out for that long. I'm thrilled with the response from our staff, but it is a reminder that we're dependent on things and people that we don't have control over, and we have to retain a certain level of control. We have to set examples, and if people can't live up to the expectations, we need to find new vendors that can. We've since had some other challenges with the answering service, but wanted to just kind of touch base with the board and let you all know that we are absolutely addressing this holistically, not just saying, hey, this customer got back on, great. We're gonna get to the bottom of really what failures took place and what more can we do to protect against these failures moving forward. Because again, we just cannot have that happen.
Thank you all for, diving in and using this as a learning experience.
So my quick question, this says top 8 outages. Do we have other outages? And the reason why I'm asking, because the 29th, on Riverside Drive, my house, Newman, next door, we're without power for a couple hours. And Jeremy was out and got that resolved.
Might not have put the other, typically where there's other reports that come in, and I don't think I put
They
the,
should put it on here, because it doesn't skip a month. That's weird.
And he had stopped, and I just remember the morning, because I was leaving for a job site, and he was driving by, and I shrugged my shoulders like this, and he said, I'm looking, and shortly after that, I was gone, but my wife was there, and the power was back on, and Jeremy stopped by the house and talked to my wife for a minute, and
Yeah, that's really strange, because it is on.
he
the
said
list.
he couldn't figure out, like, it just magically came back on, whatever, I don't know.
No, there was a failed fuse, but there was no smoking gun as to what caused the fuse to fail.
Right.
Yeah, and I do show it in the outages in the system, but I don't know why it didn't pull it out of there when we grabbed all these to put it into this report, because we go from the
I'm
beginning of
just-
the month to the end, so good catch on that one.
and it's captured in the statistics, but it's not individually listed, and it's not in the other reports either.
I wonder if it only puts 8 on the sheet for some reason, but it always says top,
Well, that's
whatever the
66
number
euro.
is.
From 8 now up to 66, I
That's weird.
think. Yeah, maybe it puts a filter on for the report. Update.
I'm not sure.
Okay, let's move on.
Alright, that's the outage report. Income statement. So I'll preface this income statement, and we won't spend too much time on it, but this is last income statement that you all will see, but will, in this form, the next one will be the audit, and there will be significant changes between this and the audit. There's after the fiscal year, transactions, non-cash transactions that get booked, our GASB 68, our pension liability transaction, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, journal entry. That'll hit, we'll have some other things that we're looking at between now and the audit. I'm going to look at, well, I guess I'll start by saying we finished the year on this report with a very healthy net income. I'll remind the board that it was really to funnel cash recovery, and we were not anticipating purchase power. Ultimately finished the year $500,000 under budget. Nobody saw that coming, obviously. So we finished with a very healthy net income. It funneled into the cash management plan, funneled into the capital plan. But one of the things that we've had the opportunity to consider, and we'll do that, we'll work with Peter, is the natural gas regulator station. It's just to the south of the office. When we paid for that, it was $800,000 or something, rough. $750,000 to $800,000. It was cash in at the time. And then we were expensing it monthly for 7 years. 7, 5? 7, that's what I thought. but it was supposed to align with the rebate period that where consumers would rebate us back some of that based on our gas consumption. Our gas consumption was never going to hit, is never going to hit any level that would result in a material rebate coming back to us that would significantly change that entry in that expense. So we're going to work with the auditors to understand what that would look like to just eat the last, or not eat, but to go ahead and book the last 2 years of that expense all in this fiscal year. It'd be about a $230,000 hit. Again, it's a non-cash hit. It just cleans up financials. It was, things have significantly changed from the time where we started that practice to now. So it's something we're going to evaluate, but we did finish the year with a very, very healthy net income, and some of the line items that were off. Obviously, sales revenue that was largely attributed to residential sales. Purchase power was way under budget. And then the only other thing that was, I'd say, significantly over budget was the employee benefits and other compensation. And that was very much, that's just the $75,000 MERS pension contribution that we made in June. So we finished the year very, very comfortable position moving into the audit, I'll say. So we'll look to see what more moves what more will change, I guess, between now and when we present the audit to you all for formal approval later in the year. With that, I'll say that's the income statement. Capital projects, let's go to the summary. Again, this is the last of the year. And I think we really did maximize the capital budget. Again, there's some items that are over budget. The vehicle replacement fund is over budget. Again, that's the $100,000 contribution, the additional contribution that we decided to make there. IT came in a little bit under budget, and then the remaining pieces are really just the balancing and redistribution of capital dollars as things change throughout the year. We ended up exceeding the budget on voltage conversion, but came in under budget on some other line items, specifically that system expansion budget. We had originally planned to dig in and wrap up Harvest Meadows, but a lot of that work is ultimately going to be pushed out till this year. They've made a lot of progress there, but the capital budget ultimately came in slightly over $1 million, which is right where we were hoping it would land. And really proud of what all got accomplished this year through the capital budget. A ton of work has been accomplished, and a lot of improvements have been made to the system and our system. So that's our capital budget summary for June. And then I just want to put this on, Perry had mentioned putting conferences, things like that on the agenda. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Perry, but these are just some pictures of the presentation that I made. Emily did an amazing job working with me and Julie to help develop the PowerPoint presentation. The gentleman to the left there is Michael from Great Blue Research. He's the CEO of the company that does our customer satisfaction survey. So it was really great to present with him. It was a great networking opportunity. Really, it was really a good conference. Made some very good contacts, and went all the way to California to meet a bunch of people from Michigan. So met a group of people from Grand Rapids, the Monster Detective, and then a kiosk vendor from Detroit that is a potentially really good contact. So, Perry, I don't know what all you want to add, but.
So again, I don't know how much, they show you there.
That's
I don't know if they recorded the whole thing, but I'll stop by the office and you can steal. So I recorded his whole presentation.
Great.
So we can.
I was counting on the.
I should have saw her earlier. We could have had a little clip on the.
Nah, shucks, you missed your opportunity. Next month's too late.
So anyway, I had that. I really stole this, or not stole it, but was got it, and I gave it one to Lisa. But this is a company right out of Grand Rapids. They're out there, and I really got that for you, Tina. It's educational things for kids, and it was a good conference. So I watched Charlie's, here's the narrating about that. I went to, one is explore the Light Up Navajo, and what it takes and how to participate. So the Navajo Reservation, there are literally 11,000 homes without electricity. And what is that? I mean, you start thinking about it. So they don't have refrigeration for their food, for their medicines, and there's different companies that have, if you think of it as community service or what I want to, when we mutual aid. It's basically mutual aid without the disaster. We can send a crew out, we can send partial crews, we can send our equipment, we can send them out, and use equipment that's out there. They'll set our guys up with equipment. It's just, I just think it's from everything that they talk about, it's very rewarding to the people that go out and do that. And they had people, they had a film about it, and it was very impressive. You'll like this because you wanted me to take off any. So we had one of our speakers in the general session was the future of economic growth, Dana Peterson. She's a chief economist, but she talked about everything, but she couldn't use any specific names. She could have to say former president or
Current administration.
And it was a real eye-opening. But probably and it's typical of the national conference, is the last day. The general speaker is a motivational, and it was Sugar Ray Leonard. And it was
awesome.
It was the best, it literally was, I felt, the best part of the whole trip. And
He told us about no mas.
I know, thank you.
No mas.
And it was very dry sense of humor, very, and talked about his life, and it was a great speech.
He really had a very refined I wouldn't call it a performance, but he had a very refined presentation that was multimedia. He'd set it up, play a clip, and he had a great sense of humor. I mean, he was engaging. I've seen a lot of keynote speaker rooms get very empty because it's the only thing in the morning. There's a breakfast keynote speaker. Everybody's gone by 10 typically. He was very captivating.
So what's your takeaway from some of the things he said?
Well, he was just motivational. You got to stick with it. You got to, size doesn't matter. I mean, he goes. I mean, one of his standard. So he'd play clips, and then he'd talk about it, and then he'd play another clip, and then he'd interact with the audience, and he'd go, "I know what you're thinking. He's not that big," but for him, it was just he was motivational. you put in the work, you put in the hard times, and you don't listen to all the chaos that's going on around you, and you do your job. The other was, some of the other keynote speakers was, it was kind of bleak, of what was,
What's
if the country goes in this direction, what's gonna happen, and if the country goes in this direction. And it was, yeah.
Well, I think one of the big, it wasn't intentional, but something that you're seeing quite a bit more time dedicated to it is the concept of AI or large language models or machine learning. We're seeing a lot more presence in, I think, and one of the general sessions was one of the original developers of Alexa. I think she said she was the 10th person that was added to the Alexa development team. But that was kind of a big picture, but then there was also there were multiple sessions on different use cases for AI at utilities, and AI, I think, is very interesting. It will ultimately have a place at the board table here with things like acceptable use policies, AI security policies. We're learning that it's an extremely powerful tool that can go wrong very quickly. There was one AI generative model that creates original content, turned racist and sexist, I think, in like an hour and a half. Turned it on, rolled it out, and it was a bigot in an hour and a half.
many examples of
Yeah,
that.
if you Google it, but there's also a ton of efficiency cases, and there's a difference between large language models, AI, machine learning. There's different ways you can use the different tools, and we are not actively engaged as a company, I would say. I'm actually at a meeting today with our IT vendor about kind of exploring some AI and understanding limitations and guidelines. And again, I think the board will ultimately have at least a policy put in front of them for adoption, but it's one of the things that seemed to be a very underlying theme at the conference. Every day there was something on AI.
Yeah, it's not going away,
No.
I don't know.
Well,
How
what people don't
use it.
realize is it's been around for a long time. Google is sitting here, Siri, Alexa, Google searches. You ever notice how Google? Shut up.
You mentioned it.
Yeah. But like Google searches, you search something. If you ever notice the little sections that are questions that have a little plus.
Mm-hmm.
That's large language models trying to understand what it is you're really looking for. So AI and whatever you want to group under, the AI, machine learning, large language models are all very different things, but they're generally kind of under the umbrella of AI.
You could have a conversation with my son talking about Dodge Rams. Next thing I'm getting hits on my phone about Dodge Rams. I'm like, what?
Everyone's always listening.
So it was a jam-packed conference. I mean, you literally, like I said, if you wanted to go sightseeing or something in San Diego, you needed to book, 2 or 3 more days, because if you were there for the conference, you had something to do every part of the day, and in the evening, again, one of the evenings, the MPPA had a dinner there, so pretty much all the MPPA members that were attending went out together, and that was a really great conversation that went on during that dinner. So, yeah, it was.
I found that, a great way to, build relationships with other, general managers and other people at MPPA that are doing the work, and just, that was a pivotal time for me, I think.
I would say some of the most valuable takeaways from from any conference like that are the relationships you build and the opportunities you get to talk to your peers. I know other managers very well, obviously, but to have more dedicated time to sit down over dinner and talk about a whole host of different things, because inevitably we all live in the same world, so we're all talking about the same things. It's just very productive.
And I'll just say too, it reaffirms you're a rock star, you know?
I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that.
So that's kind of what,
Big
conference.
I'm a small fish in a big pond?
Well, I know, but
No, I appreciate that, because it's something that I think it's important to be in those places and not, and I thank the board for the support, because not all boards are as supportive and see the big picture. Gotta go all the way to California to learn what, and it's a lot of, there's a whole host of benefits between networking and relationship building and just what you hear and learn.
Yep.
It really is a good
going
use
to
of
the
time.
breakout sessions and communicating, with board members from, utilities around the world as far away as Guam.
Guam.
Guam's
public power.
But, yeah, it really put in perspective for me where we are in our performance and our teamwork here and the culture that we build. I got to compare that to others, and patting ourselves on the back here, I think we're doing a good job. I don't want to gloat or whatever, but at the same time, I think we have to acknowledge, our position and the scope of things.
I would agree, and I appreciate that. I know everybody takes a lot of pride in everybody's contributions that ultimately bring this whole thing together, because it takes everybody, that's for sure.
Manager's report.
All right, manager's report, last one. I'm gonna jump real quick. So we've talked a little bit about PA 95. This is under the MMEA section. So the Senate did pass Senate Bill 880, which is the rewrite to the Low Income Energy Assistance Fund. Again, last month, you all made the decision to opt out of PA 95 for next year. We fully anticipate that the bill will go through the House with minimal changes, but we will lose that optionality moving forward. I'd have to look at the actual implementation date, but we will be presented with an alternative program that we can use to comply with this law. And essentially, if we don't want to participate in the state's low-income energy assistance fund or the energy assistance program, there's a fund and a program. We can establish an energy assistance program for our residential customers that provides both electric and home heating needs. So there's a whole lot more details that are going to need to work out in the bills, but one of my fears and what I advocated for is we're ultimately going to be forced to put another charge on our bill to fund this energy assistance fund, and I'm concerned of what it's going to do to the A+ program. The A+ program, we have quite a bit of flexibility over and have the ability to meet the needs of the community, not just what the state thinks the needs of the community are or what some state program says the needs are. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to work with FROM and we can continue to retain that, but I've heard two different sets of information and they're conflicting a little bit. We'll see what happens when the final bill comes out and is signed by the governor, but this other compliance that would allow us to establish another program, the A+ program, is not going to meet those requirements, and I'm not sure FROM is going to be eligible to administer the funds. or that they even want to, honestly. I've got to understand what the language is, but originally, we were told that we would have to partner with somebody that is a pre-approved vendor, basically, or has a pre-established relationship with the MPSC to administer this program, but ultimately, my frustration lies in that we're going to be adding a surcharge to our bill that will ultimately funnel money to consumers.
That's the question I was gonna
It
ask.
has to
Are we being thrown in
Yes.
to subsidize for-profit corporations, and that is
Wrong.
despicable.
Wrong. And consumers in DTE are advocating for this heavily. And I don't think it's any coincidence that their bills are becoming less and less affordable. DTE just put in a rate increase for what, $450 million, you know off the top of your head? It's something like $10 a month was their new rate case that they made to the MPSC. So I'm frustrated. We will do everything in our power to retain the A+ program because we have the ability to help people that fall through the cracks. But more to come. I wanted to share some more of those details. We don't anticipate the House taking it up until probably after the election. Potential that if that'll happen during lame duck. But we fully expect, this has been a priority of, as Perry indicated, the party in power right now, without naming names. This has been a priority, and if they lose that position, then this will for sure get completed, but we don't anticipate this won't be completed regardless of what that elections later this year produce. Moving on in the manager's report, I'm going to hand it over to Casey briefly. He was on vacation. I didn't want to bother him for a generation report, but wanted to just hand it over to him for briefly to touch base. We did have a somewhat busy month last month.
I guess, do you want me to talk about the peak load?
Yeah, that's kind of, 'cause I know that we spent a lot of time, and Casey spent a little bit of worrying about the hot temperatures last month.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's inconvenient. I had a vacation plan and
Vacations are not inconvenience.
quite a few months, and then all of a sudden that was the hot streak. I was a little disappointed I wasn't here, but luckily the grid did well. There were no emergencies and no big issues, so that was good. Last month, June 19th, to be exact, was our peak system load for the year so far. And just to kind of backtrack, we have a summer peaking system, and that's primarily due to all the air conditioning, is the biggest consumer of energy. That peak was about 7% higher than last year's peak. Doesn't seem like a huge percentage, but in the past, we've typically only had increases in peak of like 1 or 2% year over year. So, it's nearly tripled previous year peak. So from last year to this year was typical of like a 3-year transition. So nothing to be alarmed about. I guess the question is like why? What's creating this demand? Why has this increase in peak happened? Primarily, as you saw from all the graphs with energy consumption, industrial load has gone up quite a bit from one large industrial customer, and they are definitely the primary cause of that increase in the peak. Again, like I was saying, there's kind of questions pop in your head. Are we prepared? Are we? Does it raise any concerns? And yes, we are prepared. The circuits are all at very good capacity, and no reason to be concerned with that increase in load. And, you know, an increase in peak of 7% doesn't necessarily mean an increase in revenue of 7%. Because revenue is based on energy consumption, so, but it's gonna be plus or minus around there. You know, I guess that's just one thing to say, that they're not directly correlated, but they can be linked. It will change how MPPA looks at our forecast for next year for capacity resources and what we have, and you know, more capacity purchases that we have to make. So basically to say that we need to be prepared for this new peak load in the future. And it is seasonal, so it's only going to look at, you know, what is our peak load for each season, and how does that change our capacity resources for each season.
How much of the power are we purchasing on the open market right now? Or do all of our contracts cover?
So, it's a deeper dive, but it all is linked to the risk management policy. And it's a hedge policy that basically says, that sets a target for well, I guess it's a 10-year horizon now, but it's really a 5-year horizon, maybe with a 9. But incrementally, we want to have, like right now, we get about, we're about 90% hedged, and it depends month to month. Your spring months, we tend to be significantly overhedged, not significantly overhedged. We tend to have a much higher hedge percentage because our contracts make up. We just have so much more power.
Do a deeper dive another time.
Yeah, call it 80 to 90%, and that's a really good barometer. But
Okay.
there's a lot more to uncover there. But we stay in a position where we have the opportunity to take advantage of market conditions, but also not be exposed to wild market fluctuations. Try to find that balance, and it's somewhere around 80%.
I think my wife is responsible for that peak as well.
You think so?
Turn the air conditioning down to
It was
45
cold.
degrees.
It was cold.
So,
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank
you.
other questions?
Thanks, Casey. Yeah, it was a big thing. We had talked before he had left, and the heat wave came through, and we didn't have any overloaded transformers. We were prepared for them, but the guys, Ryan and them, have proactively been swapping out a lot of the more overloaded transformers, the more data that we have. So he's been prioritizing those. We've done quite a bit in terms of voltage conversion. That's taken a lot of the loading off of the step-down transformers. So some of the problems that we've seen in the past, we just didn't. We rode through this one. I don't want to say we're lucky. I also don't want to say we're good. I think it's a combination of both. I lean more towards good, but we've been very intentional. We've been proactive. We made it through a very hot stretch last month. We made it through a pretty nasty thunderstorm, I think. I don't really know. I was in Delaware watching the radar roll through and watching the consumers' outage map grow very quickly in a direction headed straight for Lowell, which was very nerve-wracking, but we got good people.
Lowell Light Power was still here when you got back, right?
Yeah, we had good people in place ready to deal with it. So, all right, we'll move on. I want to stop at the line shack in here. So at the July 1st City Council meeting, City Council approved an updated resolution that would sell the line shack to the identified developer at a reduced price. Price was reduced to reflect the change in market value based on a redrawing of the FEMA floodplains. And Jim, please correct me if I say anything incorrect.
You're absolutely correct.
Ultimately, the City Council landed on a final sale price of $62,000, and the reports I got were that the City Council directed City Manager to work with me to determine how those funds should be allocated. Mike and I have had some really good conversations. And we're really trying to make sure that we set both organizations on a path that continues to leverage the very strong relationship that we've built between the city and Lowell Light and Power, and the collaborative and supportive relationship. But I know there are, the report that I got is there's some differences in opinions, maybe amongst the council, but ultimately the council directed Mike to work with me, and Mike and I are going to sit down and see if we can't come to an agreeable solution, but happy to take any feedback from the board at this point. But I talked with Craig a little bit earlier. I think there's quite a bit of things that need to be hashed out or foundationally established before the board necessarily needs to take a formal position or take a public position on it.
Okay.
But my it's a unique situation, and
It sure is.
we'll keep working through it. But yeah, happy to.
I'll just say about it publicly right now that, I sit here and represent our ratepayers, and they need to be made whole. So,
I think there's no legal requirement that the city has to share any of the proceeds. I think our relationship that we have with the city, and I know Mike would agree, isn't predicated on what we legally have to do for each other. There are certain legal requirements, but I think the relationship between the two organizations has developed into something that's extremely positive. I actually had a conversation with our operations group today, and they were talking about how great it is, the strong relationship that we have, and ultimately the fact that the community comes out ahead when we embrace the collaborative relationship, and ultimately the community is better off. So we're going to keep that in mind as we continue the conversations, but I think it's important that our customers, ultimately electric revenues have paid for the cost of ownership, essentially, upkeep, utilities, improvements, insurance for a very long period of time, and I feel like they should have a route that returns that investment back to the electric customers. So I don't know if there's anything, Perry.
I'm glad that it's coming to an end. It's been a big distraction for many years. And with that, there's also disappointment. But I'm glad it's coming to an end and that we can move forward. I would like, if it works out, I think it's time that we also have a joint meeting with the council. And I want to move forward. And let's leave it at that at this point.
I would like us to have a joint meeting. I would also like to have somebody like a Lou Bender come in and facilitate that. We need to have a good conversation, and I think the only way we do that is with an objective source. That's my feeling.
Okay. That's all I have to say about it.
Any comments from the other board members? Because Mike and I will be picking up this, he's out the rest of the week, but we're going to be having, he's been, I think, given direction from the council, but happy to, appreciate any additional feedback from Andrew, Tina. Like Perry mentioned, this has been a very long process, and it's been a very long process.
Over 3 years. Do you have anything to say?
No,
I don't either. I
I
don't
don't
either.
know.
Just glad that we're wrapping it up.
All right, move on. Want to highlight GIS. We've made great, Ryan and I and Tony, we all actually had a meeting with the contractor this morning. GIS is coming along well. He's probably about halfway through the system, and probably has another 3-ish weeks left of field work. Hopefully we can trim that down to about 2. But making great progress and looking forward to getting a usable product in the hands of everybody in the field, and really start using the capabilities of the GIS. I'm going to touch base on the staffing update. Want to highlight Ryan's official transition to part-time, so he's one step retired at this point. We're holding on to the other foot pretty good, not gonna let him leave. But no, he, as we've been talking about, and he's seen this, we've worked together, kind of seeing this coming. But actually yesterday, Zach officially started his new position as the transitional distribution manager, and started working with Ryan a little bit. Again, this is going to be a lengthier transition. We're not in any giant hurry to try and check boxes, but we want to be making steady progress in developing Zach into this position, but also balancing the work that needs to get done in the field. And here over the next a couple months, we're going to start looking at bringing in a new journeyman line worker and adding to the roster to help replace some of those labor needs. But can't thank Ryan enough for his years of service in the past, his future commitments to Light and Power. But we're very fortunate to have had the opportunity to benefit from Ryan's knowledge, and I'm thrilled that we've got a transition period where we're going to be able to extract even more information out of that brain.
I appreciate that.
And he's gonna keep his cell phone number.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we can,
Oh, he's not gonna change his cell phone number. We'll track him down. We can pay a PI real quick to track you down. We know where to find him.
I don't know if Ryan's gonna be okay.
Like up and up.
We've had those conversations. Ryan's not gonna, he loves line work. He's gonna be asking to put his hooks back on here in a year, asking if he can climb a pole for us.
No, bucket on it.
Like,
I like my knees.
I was saying the knees don't hold up nearly as well on a pole after a couple years of doing it. Couple 25 or 30. No, thank you, Ryan.
you gotta try crawling around him.
I don't understand how you do what you do. Also wanted to let everybody know we did have a job posting out there for our communications specialist. We've ultimately worked out a deal to person expressed an interest in sticking around and not resigning her position. So Julie was able to work out those details, and we're thrilled to have Emily stick around and stay part of the team. So really happy to report that. We did learn a few things. If we need to ever replace that position or any of the office positions, we're going to change some of our strategies. We did not get, historically, we've always gotten large numbers of applications from just local resources, especially for positions that don't tend to come from other utilities. Of the everybody in the office, I don't think anybody came directly from another utility. So we tend to find very qualified candidates that we just need to teach our stuff to, just from local resources. And the ads and the promotion that we put out there did not produced the same level of interest, I would say, as previous ones. So we don't have a need right now, but we know that whenever that need comes, we're probably going to take a little different approach to filling some of those positions. Board reappointment. Want to acknowledge that Craig officially kicked off his second term as a Light and Power board member. I want to thank you, Craig, for your first term. Appreciate working with you. Look forward to the term 2 and 3 and 4 and see where we can go from there. You got a long way to go before you catch up to Perry and Andrew and Tina. I'll say I don't know how many collective years of experience there are between the other 3, but there's a couple years, a couple decades. But no, really appreciate you coming on the board. You've been a great addition, and I really enjoy working with you. I do have a code of conduct for you. Not that your conduct has been out of code,
Right.
But it's something that we started a few years back. I think Perry recommended that, as each board member is reappointed, we renew the acknowledgement of the code of conduct. So we'll do that again next July when I believe you and Daniel. I don't know. I'd have to look. I think it's 2 1 year, 2 the next, and then Craig the 3rd year.
Okay.
But I don't remember because I think you were last year.
I thought Daniel was last.
I think Daniel and you were. It's on the website. I go to the website when I need to know. But
That's okay.
the one I'm confident in is Craig's reappointment this year. Other than that, there's a bunch of information in the manager's report. Couple just real quick notes. Right now, the 2024 customer satisfaction survey.
Yes.
Excuse me. Digital or paper. Something we did last year, first go around, was work with Great Blue Research to get some paper copies so we could target our entire customer base, because we have parts of our customers that are not at different levels of utilization of technology, we'll just say. So we want to make sure we get everybody's opinion. Energy Saving Trees program is in the works. We're going to try it again this year. We had tons of great feedback. Make a couple of changes. We will most likely hold off next year. I don't think it's a program that can be sustained on an annual basis. But we had a lot of customers reach out after the fact last year and say, hey, we want to do this. We're gonna look at providing a watering bag with each tree this year based on your recommendation. So looking at year 2, but again, probably looking at, we're curious how it's going to go this year. We have a fairly small customer base, and we can't do any smaller than 100 trees. So last year we got rid of 97.
And I would reduce the time.
Yes, we're gonna.
Maybe a 2-hour block instead of a 4-hour.
We've got a whole lot of notes of the actual pickup event. There's things that work really well. There's things that we're prepared for. We'd rather be over prepared. Company picnic was well received, and last year it was great to do a family friendly event. So company picnic is currently scheduled for August 17th, if you put that on your radar, but it's going to be out at Fallisburg Park again this year. And look, I really enjoyed seeing all of the families and kiddos, and the extended Light and Power family was a lot of fun. Other than that, I want to highlight Lisa's 3rd anniversary. She's part of the office staff that's in that 3 to 4 year window that has really, that group, along with Megan and Julie, have really elevated that department, and we've got a very strong group there. And just want to stop a minute to acknowledge Lisa's contribution to the team. And then that's the manager's report. I'll hand it back over to you. Actually, a couple of things. Sorry, I got my notes, but I forgot. We're also gearing up for some conferences. I'll be attending the Michigan Energy Providers Conference later this month. And then I'm happy to report that we are going to send Tony to the InPower conference in Detroit later this year. That's a GIS conference. Julie and I are looking at and are going to attend the Business and Finance / Cybersecurity and Technology Conference in Cleveland. We've never sent anybody to that, but that's a fall conference. So we're going to make our road trip to Cleveland, the beautiful city of Flaming Rivers.
It's not a bad city now.
But I'm from Ohio, so I like to stay on Cleveland. Only one city I know set the river on fire twice. And then also the MEA Fall Conference is October 1st through 3rd, and that's going to be over in Port Huron. But that's a really good conference, and we'll have at the MEA Fall Conference, we will have quite a contingency there. It's the conference that the whole leadership team goes to typically. And if any board member is interested or has a potential interest, please let me know and I'll get you the information. But yeah, wanted to just touch base on some of the conferences that we have coming up. And then, if you'll go up to the pictures, I don't know what all's in here even. Oh, yeah.
Kind of scroll through them slowly, but you want to talk about it?
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about them real quick. Safety Town's always a ton of fun. That's something that we picked up a couple years ago, and the guys do a great job.
Who's that cute little girl?
Not sure. This year was a lot of fun. Zach had his little girl in the group, and it's always a lot of fun when family members are there to see dad doing things. Zach, Tony, the guys, they do a phenomenal job with these, and it really is a blast. I will admit I was not up to my tip-top game for this. Perry and I got in, and we got to the house about 2 o'clock in the morning the night before, coming back from San Diego, but it ended up, did your computer die, Megan?
No, it just froze, so I'm
Oh. But it really was a great event. The other pictures there, they're in your packet. We did story time at the library again. Jeremy, Jared, and
There it is.
Jeremy, Jared, and Mark. I thought I hit button. Did story time at the library. Again, that's always a lot of fun. That was something that we added last year. It's an opportunity to share the If I Were a Line Worker book, and it's just been a great outreach tool for us. And just some other pictures, some social media stuff but yeah, if you have any questions or anything, it was another good month. But I guess that's the wrap up of the manager's report.
Okay. In the packet, scheduled meetings. Also supplemental information, and our next regular Lowell Power Board meeting is August 13th, 2024. Board comment. Great.
Well,
You get to go first because you're on this side.
yeah. When I walked in the door today and Emily came to the window, I said, "I'm so glad to see you here." And yeah, I'm glad we could make it work.
Yes.
Also, you guys have been doing a lot of work on Washington Street. And, I love to go watch them. And I'm not trying to, play a gotcha game or anything like that. I admire their work. I want to see what they do, And so, yeah, that's what I do.
Perfectly good.
Yeah.
Test it now. Get out your phone. Just do this every once in a while. No. The nice thing is they all take everything they're a very professional group, and there's never concerns of who's watching or who's not watching, because they just do things right.
Andrew.
I was just going to point out that some of the staff had commentary up on the slide from the conference, and I thought, in particular, Ryan and Megan had pretty thoughtful comments, and the peers, so thanks for those comments. I like how you're comparing past and the present and how things have evolved, and I like your comment, right is right. And very appropriate, but I think, to that end, I'll say you've been one of those great things we've had, over your time here. So that's been a big thanks for what you've done, Berlin Power. And kind of a funny note also, there's the Mark's comment.
I don't remember what March was.
We're not
going backwards.
backwards.
Yeah, we're not going backwards.
Yeah.
Jim,
I'm good, thanks.
Tina,
A couple things. Bravo to customer service for the write-offs and balances, getting it right down to there. I'm not going to talk about the retirement funding, but we'll circle back at another time. But bravo to Charlie for your customer satisfaction, like your strategies for improved customer satisfaction presentation. When I saw that picture, I thought, oh, that is so cool. And then I looked at all the information that came from it, and super cool. So I'm pretty proud of you that you stood up in San Diego and just took it over, and it was just so simple to you, Simple, it looked like it.
I hope it looks simple, because I want to stop and give credit as well there. Emily
Yeah.
and Julie, the three of us, we met probably twice a week for 3 weeks because Emily created, I don't have the skills to create the PowerPoint
I love the lady with
slides.
the tall stack of
Yeah.
hats, the different hats that you wear,
So I might have been the one up there standing, doing the talking, but the presentation itself was a team effort. I ran through my thoughts and everything with the whole leadership team. Everybody provided feedback. It changed significantly over time, but it really was the feedback from the whole leadership team, from Emily throughout it. Julie and Emily were knee-deep in making the actual presentation. Emily took that bull by the horns and really made it awesome, and we received tons of very positive feedback really about the presentation visually. The company, the guys that created the research, the
yeah.
people that I presented with were thrilled. They mirrored our presentation, so it looked like it was a single kind of, it was two parts of the same presentation, and it really, I'm really proud of the teamwork that went into it and proud of how it turned out.
I love the quotes, like what Andrew said. And I wrote Ryan, Julie, Hillary, Megan, Tony, and Mark. Bravo, because I love those quotes, and it brought us back to Lowell. That this was us saying how comfortable everybody is here in Lowell. And I'm sure that what happened with you and like with your little name tag, here I am, Charlie Ross, Lowell, Michigan, and somebody's across the table from you and says, oh my gosh, so they finally get to hear your voice and get to see your face. You're Charlie West. I've heard great things that you're doing. I love that. If you guys have it, I love these conferences, and I love the things that you bring back and you show us what happened there. I appreciate it. I love that you guys go. I'm sorry, I'm not going because I'm not retired.
it's in New Orleans next year.
I'm sorry, but I'm not retiring yet, David Cadwalder, so just forget it. I'm gonna still be working and busy. Also, Ryan, thank you so much for holding our hand and walking us through this transition, because if you would have just gone, I would say that I would feel that we would be lost and I would be worried. But thank you for taking Zach and just walking us through it and reassuring that everything's going to be okay. And don't ever stop telling me that it's going to be okay.
It always works out.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, there's a couple things that when Charlie spoke there, because I attended a couple of the other meetings, and I have a big interest in the light up the Navajo Nation, and would like to see Lowell Light and Power participate. But I will tell you that there was probably 25 people in that presentation. At Charlie's presentation, there was probably well over 200 people there. The room was packed.
You were
So,
with a celebrity.
yeah, so that was
Yeah,
good.
Michael did a great job.
Pink Arrow this year is going to be a 3-day event. It's going to be, the football game is going to be Friday, September 13th. But the volleyball is going to be Wednesday night outdoors at the new soccer stadium, and then Thursday will be the soccer game. So the school is setting it up as a 3-day event this year.
Shirts are pink, I saw this year. Yeah.
Yes,
Back to pink.
it's back to pink, and you can order that online. And there's many different ways you can go about purchasing them this year. The trees, I love doing the trees. I would also, when people sign up, I would do a little description that a lot of people thought they'd be little seedlings, and so they came with their Mini Cooper, and because we saw pictures of them driving down Main Street with a 10-foot tree out their moonroof, sunroof, it was quite comical. So again, I would preempt, maybe they won't be as big a tree this year or whatever, but I would preempt them with, you might want to have a larger vehicle or a pickup truck or whatever.
It was a surprise last year.
Yeah.
Beach and delivery.
Yeah. Our guys made quite a few deliveries of the trees.
Made some deliveries and planted one or two I know planted one for an elderly lady, so
That was nice of them.
looks good too.
And Ryan, maybe he's semi-retired, but I know it's not in your DNA to sit around. Maybe you'll do a lot more fishing or whatever. But what I want to thank you for is the culture you created here with the distribution, the linemen and everything. Because, again, 20-some years, whatever, being on the board, we didn't always have that positive culture, and you have created that positive culture, and I'm sure that the employees that we have will carry that culture on into the future. And that is a testament of your personality, your direction, because I think the linemen, the crews, and all employees, the office highly respect you.
Hear, hear.
And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll support, but.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I voted.